What's going on, fellow truckers and CB enthusiasts? It's Jay Rich back again with another one. And today, a long overdue video, I am going to show you how to properly install a CB antenna. The mount and everything. We're going to talk about a few things. And for the most part, this is kind of universal for cars, trucks, big trucks, all that good stuff. And we're not really talking about mag mounts. We're just talking about mounting with a mount and antenna itself. And this video is basically just for reference, as I'm not really installing an antenna on my truck at this point in time. But before we get too far into this video, if you would go ahead and hit that subscribe right down there in the corner, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, is always appreciated. Alright, so in this video we're basically going to talk about two types of antenna. One being a base load, what I call a base load. Wilson calls this a center load, but this load is a lot closer to the base than it is to the center. So steel whip or a top load fiberglass. Keep your opinions to yourself on which is better. I don't want to hear it. This is not for that. This is to teach the beginner how to properly mount an antenna. Now, typically when anybody asks about antennas or mounting locations or what, it's always, what's the best antenna? What's the best antenna? My first question is always antenna location. Where's your antenna going to be mounted at? Or what type of antenna are you going to use? To me, those are very important questions. If somebody says antennas don't matter, locations don't matter, okay, let's try this. We'll just take our antenna, we'll just screw it to this mount here. We'll take some coax and just screw it into this mount. We'll just throw it right there.
I mean, it really doesn't matter, does it?
So, now you're going to say, well, that doesn't really work. Well, of course not. Of course it doesn't work. And mounting the wrong antenna in the wrong location really doesn't work either. Yeah, you might hear a little bit, you might talk a little bit, but hey, there's better out there, right? Alright, so first let's talk about antenna mounting locations. There's a couple things that depend on this. Alright, your antenna length being one. Do you park your vehicle inside a garage, a parking deck, or your home garage, or a carport, something like that? You may not want to have to take that antenna down all the time, or bend the antenna, or be scratching the ceiling inside your garage or something like that. Now, also knowing where you're going to mount on the vehicle. Let's talk about front of the vehicle, middle of the vehicle, and back of the vehicle. Now, something pretty popular here lately, I see a lot of people going on the fender to mount a CB antenna. Not a bad choice. Not a bad choice. It's not my first choice. Going right here to the front of the fender, they'll get a little mount and boom, right there. It's a good spot for the fact of there's nothing around the antenna. The antenna is out here and has its own space to operate. All right, now the middle of the vehicle. Sometimes guys will come right here to the bedpost. It's in the middle of the vehicle, close to the middle. Maybe you got a toolbox or don't have a toolbox, you'll go in the center of the vehicle. That's my ideal place to put the CB antenna. Right in the middle of the vehicle. Now, a bad idea for the middle of the vehicle, especially a pickup truck, is this antenna right there. It's no bueno. Problem is that your coil is right next to the cab of the truck. And this goes the same for big trucks with a mirror, and you put this coil right next to a mirror. It's no bueno. Once again, now if you have a toolbox and you come out here, that's a little better. That's a little better. what you ideally want is this coil to be above the roof of the vehicle, be above the top of the mirror. Get that coil up, which they do sell shafts that are longer. Get a 22-inch shaft, get this coil right up here above. Otherwise, the fiberglass top load would be a better option right here. Now, the back of the vehicle. We have nothing to obstruct this antenna. It's a good spot. Not my ideal, because it's not the center of the vehicle. Now, why do I say that? All right, why does front, center, and back matter? Okay, when you have an antenna mounted at the back of the vehicle, okay, this antenna wants to find flat metal surface for it to radiate off of. So your signal can skip off of the roof, it can skip off the hood, it can skip off the doors, something like that. You'll be talking more to the front of the vehicle when your antenna's at the back. Vice versa. When you have an antenna at the front, it could talk more off the back of the vehicle than it does off the front. When you put your antenna in the center of the vehicle, over here, right over here, in the center of the vehicle, it'll typically radiate out evenly. Without getting too far into this, if you do the proper antenna grounding, aka RF bonding, where you bond this whole vehicle together with braided ground strap, you will typically radiate out evenly almost no matter where the antenna is on the vehicle. Almost. All right, let's talk about the antenna mount itself. Now, there are a vast array of antenna mounts out there, and I cannot possibly have every one of them because I don't need every one of them. But typically, you'll pick up something like this. This is for a big truck mirror. You don't have to use the bottom piece. For the demonstration purposes, I have the top piece of this just stuck with some vice grips there, and you'll see that in a little bit. But you'll typically pick up something like this, and most of the time it's got the SO239 and the nut all made up together. Let's talk about this real quick. Okay, you have your SO239, which your coax screws into the bottom of this. Coax and screws in. Bam, like that. Okay, your antenna screws into this end. When you get this, it'll come like this. You see there is a plastic washer, there is a metal washer, then your nut. It needs to be in this order. Between this SO239 and this plastic washer, you will have your mount. If you look at this one, there is a black washer there. There is no black washer here. Okay? This is very, very important, and I see this mistake all the time. People mixing up their washers and putting them in the wrong spot. Okay? This is very important. If you don't do this right, probably not going to blow up your radio, but you're going to hear tons of static. You're not going to hear anybody else talk. You're not going to be getting out. It's just not going to work. You've wasted a bunch of time. So, you think about this. Okay? Let me take this apart. Give me just a second. Took the washers off, took the nut off. On this piece, your antenna, your CB, it has, let's say, positive and negative. Okay? This brass, you think of this brass as your positive. All of this is your negative. These are separated. There is dielectric or Teflon, PTFE crap, whatever, down that separates these two. If you flip this over to your coax side, there is a hole in there. Okay, the brass, that's where your coax, where the center conductor of your coax goes into. All right, This outside is where the barrel nut of the coax screws onto. That is your negative. Inside is your positive. On your coax, this is your center conductor. This is your positive. This is your negative. Okay? It is separated in the center by the PTFE, whatever, Teflon, dielectric, whatever crap. Can't think of it at the moment. On your mount itself, this metal, this is your ground. This is your positive. This is your ground. This is your ground. Your positive should not come into contact with this whatsoever. Now, how you keep your positive and your negative separate is this washer right here. If I get it real close, if you see on the bottom of it, it's got a little shoulder on the bottom of it. Okay? That shoulder goes down into the mount. See, this washer has got a shoulder on the bottom of it. That is what locates it in the hole. So this center conductor never touches this metal, which is ground. When that touches ground, you're shorting out the antenna. You're not damaging the antenna, but you are creating a short, basically. Now keep staying with me, guys, and I want y'all to understand, I'm not trying to be condescending. I am not trying to talk down to anybody, and I am not trying to insult anybody's intelligence. But we have to remember, there are people that are new to this hobby. They have no idea, and they are here to learn. So in this video, I want to be as clear and as thorough as possible. So if you think I'm being condescending, I'm being rude or insulting, take that somewhere else, because that's not my goal. My goal is to educate the new people and keep new people coming to this hobby. There are so many of you out there that bash people for not knowing the simplest things. It's all over in the Facebook groups, and you wonder why CB dies. It's because of people like that. And I don't want to be one of those people, and I will not be one of those people. So let's carry on with this. All right, like I said, this is just a example of a proper. This is not 100% proper. Don't get me wrong, but I'm going to tell you how to do it. All right. So you have your mount. You want to put it here on the bed. I have a bed cover, so therefore I have to use what I got. Okay. This mount that you have your antenna mounted to needs to go to metal, to the metal of the vehicle, the bedside or the toolbox. It needs to go to metal. Okay. This setup right here would not be good at all. Yes, I am on a metal bed frame, tonneau cover frame, and there are metal straps that connect this to the bed, but it would not be a very good ground whatsoever. The reason being is between this and the actual bed itself, there is a foam weather strip between here and also this plastic here. So we would not have a good ground whatsoever with this setup. But just trying to give you a visual. So you have your mount, you have your SO239. All right, it's sandwiched. Okay, it's on the bottom. Your plastic washer is on top. Okay, you got your metal washer, which keeps the nut from loosening up from the base, and then you have your antenna. Okay, the metal washer is important. Okay, keeps this from loosening up. Now you say, but you've got a metal washer touching your positive. It's okay, because your ground is not touching this metal washer. Everything from this plastic up is positive. Okay, Okay, for the sake of this video, let's say that this mount is directly to the metal bed rail of the truck. Okay, even though you have direct metal to metal contact, that still may not be enough ground. Okay, what I see a lot is people will get this cheap flimsy wire, even up to 10 gauge, and they'll stick it to a bolt right here, and then they'll take like 10 feet of it and run it to another spot on the bed, to another bolt or something, I mean close by. Or they'll take this little flimsy wire and run a big 10-foot long section of it all the way down and into the frame. This is no good. Do not do this. This is a waste of your time and money. This carries nothing for the RF ground, okay? And you do not ground in your antenna to the battery. Does not go to the battery. That's electrical ground. We need RF ground. We need the ground plane. The frame of the vehicle is what we need. The frame, the body, all of it. We need all that together. Now, if you insist on using a wire, I suggest something a little more heavy duty, like a 4 gauge. This is something I made up for another video a while back ago. This is a 4 gauge cable with copper lugs. You could do something like this in a pinch. All right, it's not the best. What the best is 1-inch flat braid. I've made up bunches and bunches of these in the past, and what some people have done is they'll punch a hole using a center punch or some sort of a punch to go through this. It doesn't take much. Okay, you put a hole through it and then tighten it down, trap the bolt, trap it in the bolt, and tighten it down. I don't like that. It's not clean. It's not professional. These don't. It doesn't take much for these to expand. Okay, and you kind of you lose that tightness of the braid itself. The braid gets looser. There are lugs that you can buy at Home Depot, a 6 gauge or a 4 gauge lug. Roll this up, stick it in, crimp it, you're good. Trap the lug underneath the bolt and run this. Typically you want short runs of this, as short as possible. So what I typically would do is that you would run your ground braid, say from your bed rail or your toolbox, over to another spot on the bed itself, on the metal, not the plastic, on the metal of the bed itself. And if you really want to get carried away and you want to be fancy and you want a really good working antenna system, you will make up short braids of this with lugs on both sides of it, and you'll go down at least on the 4 corners of the bed, okay, to the frame. 4 corners of the cab to the frame, the hood to the cab, the doors to the cab. That's called RF bonding, and that will give your antenna the best radiation pattern to equally radiate out in all directions. Would be RF bonding. I have videos on that. Check those out. It works wonders. It reduces static. It reduces the noise floor. You receive a lot farther. You talk farther. It's a miracle worker when it comes to antenna grounding. Now, running your coax, this is important. As our friend BBI has taught us, antennas, your coax's #1 enemy is heat. Okay? This coax is pretty good coax for beginners. Okay? But it would not take much of exhaust heat or engine heat to really get to this thing over just a couple months time, or if you wrap this around the exhaust, a couple minutes time, and this will be junk. You will be replacing this. So when running your coax, keep it away from the heat. Okay. Do not bend your coax like this. Give it a little bit of space. Give it a little bit for it to come out, and then arc back around. All right, guys. One of the last things that I want to show you, and it's especially not necessarily with this particular name brand of antenna, but this style, because there are a few companies that make like this exact antenna. Okay. Mounting it right there. I don't understand the thinking behind this. I guess it's just because people don't know. But this coil is right here. Okay? Now, for one of the reasons, let me gather my thought here real quick. The main reason this is wrong is because this coil is right next to this body panel. It has no room to breathe. Now, what I mean by breathe is for the signal to radiate out and the signal to be received in. I don't mean this antenna is going to get fiery hot and melt your taillight. I don't mean that. Okay? What most antenna manufacturers recommend is for the coil of the antenna to be 18 inches away from any straight body panel. You know, could be the pillar of the door. Even though that comes at an angle, you still want to give this antenna that space away from that. The better choice right here, again, would be a fiberglass top load antenna. Now, why I say top load is because this antenna, this tight section of wire right here, is the coil. Okay, it's right near the top. Okay, that would be better. Our coil is way up here now. Another thing, when you put this right here with a taillight, if your taillight has an incandescent bulb, probably wouldn't bother this coil whatsoever. These taillights, however, are LEDs. LEDs give off RF noises or frequencies or interferences, whatever you want to call it. And it's gonna probably, if you have an antenna with a coil mounted right here, it's gonna put noise into the antenna and feed into your radio. All right, so about the only thing we did not cover is mag mount antennas, because there's not really a lot to cover there. You pretty much just stick it on the vehicle and it's there. Providing that your vehicle is steel, you stick it. You ain't even got to lick it, you just stick it there. Unless if your vehicle is aluminum, like a lot of the Fords are nowadays. However, over the third brake light there, okay, right over there, there is a mount that is made. I forget what the name of the company is at the moment, but they make a metal bracket where you take the third brake light out, you put the bracket, then you put the third brake light back on, and that provides a metal plate for the antenna to actually stick to and to sit on top of, because, well, magnets don't stick to aluminum. Also, remember, when you are going to go to the truck bed, keep in mind, not all truck beds are made of metal. There are truck beds that are composite, aka plastic, and there are some that are fiberglass. So make sure that the bed of the truck itself is metal. That goes for big trucks as well. I had a comment not too long ago. Somebody asked me about putting a mag mount on top of like a Mack or a Peterbilt or something like that. A mag mount would not work in that situation either, because the roof of those trucks are either aluminum or fiberglass. So mag mounts aren't going to stick to the top of a big truck or the hood, because, well, they're either aluminum, fiberglass, or plastic. Just another review, your mount needs to go to metal. If you have a spray-in bed liner, You need to grind some of that bed liner off. Plastic bed liner, you need to cut a spot out. So this goes to metal. If you're going to a toolbox, keep in mind, people mount toolboxes on bed rails. They may have a thick layer of foam in between or some plastic or something like that. So you're not going to get a good ground to the vehicle. In that case, I would ground with the braided ground strap that I showed you, ground the toolbox to the bed, ground the bed to the frame. Now you might ask, why do I say that you ground the bed to the frame? Doesn't the bed sit on the frame? Not always. Typically there are body mounts, spacers, whether they be plastic or urethane, that keep the bed off of the frame. So you only really have the bolts and the nuts that hold the bed down to actually go to the frame. So braided straps from the bed to the frame are a great idea if that's where you're mounting. Doing the hood, the fenders, the doors, the cab, all that, the bed, everything, grounding all that to the frame with the bed straps. You do that, it's going to work wonders. Try it without it, then do all that, hook it all up, try it. You're going to be blown away. But that's for the little more advanced guy out there. So all right guys, I think that's going to wrap this up, man. The humidity out here is like 138% or something like that. I think I've covered everything I could possibly think of so that you guys can mount your antenna properly. Do it right, do it the first time. Don't waste money on other crap that's not needed. So I appreciate you guys watching. Go on ahead and watch the playlist and subscribe is very much appreciated. I'm Jay Rich. Keep your knees in the breeze and the shiny side up. We'll be seeing you.